Welcome back to Sean's nightly drive-through on boxing. Tonight we're going to be talking about Inoue. We're going to talk about the symptoms of U.S. boxing and how this negativity in YouTube boxing has really had this negative effect overall throughout boxing that we've been focusing on. We're also going to talk about upcoming fights this weekend and much more. So stay tuned and let's get to it. So tonight, obviously, before we get to things, welcome to my new channel, Sean Unboxing. To all my old subscribers, welcome back. To any new subscribers, thank you very much for jumping in. If you're not subscribed, please jump in and become part of our community. I appreciate it a lot. So obviously 2023 was a great year in boxing. We had some classic fights. Spence and Crawford finally answering a question that people were asking for a long time. Inoue versus obviously Stephen Fulton, and then inevitably Marlon Tapales to become an undisputed champion. Canelo Alvarez continuing his run and rule of boxing. Tank Davis continuing being one of the most exciting fighters in boxing. Devin Haney making huge statements. Thinly sliding through a tough Lomachenko fight to defend his undisputed title, and then moving up to 140 pounds and utterly dominating Regis Prograis in a very spectacular performance. Teofimo Lopez once again bouncing back with a career-defining victory against Josh Taylor, and many other great fights of the year as well. Obviously, 2024 has just started, and already it started with a bang. Saudi Arabia has come forward and shown that they're really invested in building boxing and making great fights. And that's news, pleasant news to boxing fans like myself, because the truth is boxing is global. I'm not an American. I don't live in America. So I'm not tied to this whole Americanized sort of mentality that some people on YouTube have. I'm just interested in seeing the best fights available. And really, I don't care who produces them. It can be the PBC, ESPN, Matchroom DAZN, Golden Boy DAZN, Tekken Promotions in Japan. I don't care. The great thing I like is when money comes into the sport, whether this is money from Amazon, whether this is money through Saudi Arabia. As long as money is flowing into the sport of boxing, it's going to benefit me and you, the boxing consumers, because now inevitably we're going to get far more great content, and that's what we want, great content, right? And that's what we're looking forward to, and congratulations on having that happen. So everybody that's jumping in, Hard Recoil, welcome back. So tonight we're going to talk about some fights that are coming up, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we've noticed over the years. I've seen Johnny Boy and quite a few people recently on X, or Twitter as it was formerly known, talking about this symptomatic problem on YouTube, where fighters who are not Black Americans really get discredited, hated on, and really run through the ringer day in and day out. There's nothing many of these fighters can do to get recognition from many of these American YouTubers, right? Whether we go all the way back to Oscar De La Hoya's era and then move forward to Manny Pacquiao, Golovkin, Lomachenko, and now, of course, we see it with Canelo Alvarez, who's probably the most hated boxer in boxing today. And now we see a lot of this hate spilling and spewing towards Inoue, the monster. And as a boxing fan, you may not like somebody's fans. That's fine. You may not like someone's style. You may not like the opponents that are picked for this fighter. There's many things that you may not like. But the one thing about Inoue that you cannot not like is the fact that this guy is doing what we as boxing fans want boxers to do his best and fight the best and just go on to continue to build his legacy. And that's what he's doing right now. Currently, he's a 4-weight world champion, undisputed in 2 weight divisions, and his fight for 2024 is already scheduled, as reported earlier on one of my short videos. Go check it out. Inoue and Louis Neri is happening this May. So a little later than I would have hoped. I was hoping that fight would be a little earlier, but nonetheless, May is fine. We get Neri and Inoue in Japan. That's going to be at the Tokyo Dome, which holds 55,000 people. 55,000. Yet people are trying to downplay Inoue, talking about how Inoue needs to come to America to prove himself. This is the same narrative we heard years back towards Anthony Joshua, right? When Anthony Joshua was selling out 80,000 stadiums in the UK, whether in England or Wales or wherever it may have been, people were talking about him not being legitimate because he didn't make his name in the US. But the reality is, when you're such a superstar, you don't need to kowtow to a particular market. You don't need to go over to America just so you can be legitimized, right? AJ proved that. Right now, he's still the biggest name in heavyweight boxing, and all these events in Saudi Arabia are really being tied to his name specifically. Not Wilder, not Fury, and not others, but Anthony Joshua. Inoue is similar. Inoue has built his brand. He's fought in the UK. He's fought in the US several times. And through this process of building his name, winning accolades, and gradually becoming the superstar boxer that he is, so much so that Saudi Arabia, I think, just offered him $60 million to come have an event in the Saudi Arabia. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Unless he's going to get paid that kind of money, why would he need to leave Japan? Why would an undisputed champion feel the need to chase after other fighters? Because the truth is, if you talk about 122 pounds, 118, 126, 130 pounds, there's nobody in those divisions that's a bigger name than the Monster. There's nobody in those divisions that grabs more attention than the Monster. So why would he need to kowtow, take a knee to any of these potential fighters? People talked about he needs to go to 130 pounds or 126 pounds, and then we'll have true justification of him being great. Then we can give him faith or praise. So him joining the small class of fighters and becoming 5-weight world champions, only then will you give him praise. Only then will you give him credit. The truth is, though, you won't, and you weren't going to, and you wouldn't. It doesn't matter if he's a 5-weight champion or a 6-weight champion, whether he goes up to 126 pounds and becomes a 3-weight undisputed champion, something that's never been done in modern day boxing. The haters are going to continue to hate on him, and they're not going to give him any positivity because he's not a Black American fighter. And when it all comes down to it, this is the truth. You may not like it. It may offend you. It might make you emotional. That's fine. That has nothing to do with me. That's your guilt and your prejudice bubbling to the surface, because we've seen it time and time again. And this doesn't mean there's not hate and racism towards Black American fighters. I never said that. I'm not deflecting. I'm not changing the story. I'm not changing the guidelines. I'm talking about this story and that story only. No respecter of persons. The Black supremacists will continue to move the goalposts for Inoue. Always. Inoue deserves praise just because he fights regularly. The Black supremacist favorites hype jobs can't even sell 55,000 pay-per-views, much less 55,000 tickets. These are all facts. First fight in Tokyo Dome since Iron Mike Tyson. Salute Sean, salute Iceman. And what these people said is true. Iron Mike Tyson was such a huge star, a global star, that Japan wanted him to go to Japan to fight on the road and paid him huge amounts of money to do that. In the process, he was involved in one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. But the only reason he went to Japan was because financially he could not go, because he was such a name, such a respected fighter, and people wanted to see him fight outside of America. For Inoue, it's similar. Saudi Arabia is pulling out the checkbook. Undoubtedly, Inoue will go to Saudi Arabia this year, 2024, to defend his undisputed titles, probably against MJ Akhmadov in what will be a great fight. But if you don't get that kind of offer, then why does he need to go anywhere? People talk about, oh, he needs to go to America to be drug tested properly. What do you mean drug tested properly? How many American athletes have been caught using drugs? And how many haven't been caught using drugs, yet we blatantly know they are using? To act as if America is some paradise where cheaters will be caught and fair and, unbiased boxing will happen. We know that's a load of bullshit. We know that's not true. We know the reality of the situation is Inoue is just as likely to be treated fairly in Japan and his opponents the same as if he went to America, and probably more so. If he went to America, he'd probably have to deal with 3 American judges dictating the outcome of a fight. Whereas Americans like Stephen Fulton, who went over to Japan, did not have to deal with 3 Japanese, judges to determine the outcome of that fight, right? Only in America do you get such biased reffing and judging, which is one reason why there's so much controversy and so much conspiracy around American boxing. Let's just be honest. I says Saudi Arabia don't want Haney over there. Actually, they do want Haney. They want Haney a lot because he is Muslim. And obviously, that's why they've been trying to push the whole Devin Haney-Tank Davis fight. And in truth, the reality of the situation is that probably is the best bet to get that fight done. Saudi Arabia has deep pockets and is willing to pay. I don't understand why Tank Davis fans are so opposed to the possibility of doing what Inoue and others are willing to do, openly excited to do, which is go to Saudi Arabia and get the bag, right? Like the people who are trying to push these narratives, they're really the ones you need to ask questions about. Because the question is, if we can make these fights and the boxers are going to benefit, and you and I, the boxing fans, are going to benefit as well, then what exactly is the problem? I heard people talking about profits and this and that. It's like, why do you give a fuck about any of that? It has nothing to do with you. If the fighters are being treated fairly, that's the only thing you should worry about. If the promoter or the organizer is losing money, since when has that been an issue? When Al Heyman lost all that money he got from, what's his face, something in Reed, nobody was worrying about that. Not at all. Mars says Japan testing is far more advanced than American testing. That's what I've stated. I told Americans this consistently. But unfortunately, if you've never traveled outside the US, they have this mentality that the rest of the world is 20 years behind them, where in truth, that's far from reality. Japan is a very modern city, a very modern country, more modern in most ways than the US is. Their testing is very stringent, very stringent. That's why they were one of the last countries to open for tourists post-COVID, right? One of the last countries to open, because that's how stringent and concerned they are with making sure everything is by the book. But you can't tell people that, because the truth is they know Inoue's not dirty. They know Inoue's not cheating any more than their favorite fighter is. But that's not what they want to hear. They want to continue to push out negativity, hate, and if they say it enough, people will believe it. And we've seen this story time and time again. They want Tank. Of course they want Tank. Tank is great too, but they do want Haney. There's the interview where YouTuber, why can't I think of his name? Nigerian UK guy, Oli, man, why does his name escape me now? Obviously, he works for DAZN now and has his own YouTube channel. He interviewed the Turkey guy, whatever how you say his last name. Sorry for having a brain fart. But in that interview, he even mentioned Devin Haney. So, hard recoil, the only standards the black supremacists saving that have a double standards. According to Dan Raphael, Bivol versus Beterbiev being planned for June 1st. All praise to His Excellency. Well, and that's it. This is just another example. I've seen a lot of these people, the same people that hate on all these other fighters, hating against Saudi Arabia. And intrinsically, it's for the same reason, because it's not Black American. And because it's not Black American, they just can't get behind it and they can't support it, right? If it's not Al Heyman and the PBC that are doing it, then all they're going to do is try to find ways to discredit and hate on it. Yet, I can't understand as a boxing fan why that would be your first go-to. I saw people saying that, nothing's happened in boxing so far in 2024, but that's not true. We've had lots of great boxing so far. Fights of the year already. And potentially this weekend, we're going to get another great card, which obviously is getting tons of hate as well for the same kind of reason. And that is the Jaime Munguia John Ryder fight, which, how can you not be excited about that fight? It's going to be a fucking barn burner. It's going to be an exciting fight with nonstop action. Who knows who's going to win, right? That's what makes a fight exciting. Anybody could win that fight. It's not one of these fights you're going in where the A-side guy is going to win. No, not at all. Nobody knows who's going to win. You wouldn't be surprised if John Ryder knocked Jaime Munguia the fuck out. I wouldn't be surprised. And in turn, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaime Munguia knocked out John Ryder. And imagine that. If he knocks out John Ryder, something Canelo Alvarez couldn't do, people are going to then find a way to discredit Jaime Munguia versus Canelo Alvarez. Yet, if he does what Canelo couldn't do, that just helps build this fight into one of the biggest fights of 2024. I know it's Canelo, and I know there's nothing he can do that does not get discredited. But the truth is, Jaime Munguia coming off of a John Ryder demolition, dominant performance, it is just as good, if not better, than a David Benavidez fight. And probably economically more financial. Probably. The only difference with that fight is Jaime Munguia is obviously not a PBC fighter. So if that fight was to happen, it probably would be after the 3-fight deal with the PBC, right? In all reality. What we have to look forward to from Canelo Alvarez now is probably the older Charlo brother fight, which is another shit show. But who would be surprised? We just got confirmation that Tim Tszyu is going to be defending his WBO 154-pound title in the first PBC card of 2024 on Amazon. Pay-per-view. Against who? Keith one-time Thurman. I mean, if you want to be critical of a fight, that's a fight to be critical. Keith Thurman hasn't fought in 2 years. He's not a 154-pound fighter. So why is that a fight the PBC wants to make? Because that's what the PBC does. They tie old-ass fighters with some name recognition to fights and put it to pay-per-view, which nobody wants, and they continue to try to sell us these fights that are past their best buy date, fights that nobody cares about and nobody was asking for. I'm not anti-Keith Thurman. I'm not super pro Tim Tszyu. But the reality of that fight makes no fucking sense at all. No one wants this fight. No one even understands why this fight is being done. But the truth is, PBC fanboys will be pretty silent, probably, with regards to this fight. Or they will make it all into a race thing about Tim Tszyu. Right? As if it has anything to do with Tim fucking Tszyu, but everything to do with the PBC and Al Heyman. But let's move forward. Ryder winning doesn't make sense money-wise. Well, if you could script it, obviously they would prefer Munguia to win. But the reality of the situation is it's a dangerous fight where John Ryder easily could win. Right? We saw Jaime Munguia in his last fight against Derevchenko, an older, smaller fighter, a guy coming up from 160 to fight Munguia at 168. Munguia had all the advantages and barely was able to survive and scrape through a victory against that fighter. a very good fighter. So I'm not going to hate on him at all. But John Ryder is a more natural fighter at 168. He's been there and he's been competitive against legitimate fighters at this weight class. He's not as old as Derevchenko. He's got more in the gas tank. And you know he's coming to win. Because if he beats Munguia, he's going to put himself right back into big money fights at 168. Right? That's the easy reality. On pay-per-view, yes, Mars, on pay-per-view, you should think they make the first fight on the platform free. That's what any rational person would think, right? If you just signed a new deal to showcase your product on a new platform, wouldn't you want to give it to the fans, to the subscribers of that platform, just to give them a taste of what they have to look forward to, right? That would be the sales approach. That would be the marketing plan. If you go to the grocery store, they will give you little samplers to make you interested in what they're selling so that you will buy more, right? Costco does that all the time because that's how they sell products that people are unfamiliar with. This is what the PBC should be doing. If you were to put Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman free on Amazon, it would probably be a very successful fight. One reason, because Keith Thurman does have name recognition in the States, right? But now on pay-per-view, people's first reaction is going to be like, what? Who? Why? That was my reaction. I don't know about you, but that's how I felt. And it's not me hating on the fighters or specifically on the PBC, but they're talking about Charlo and Canelo. They're talking about Tszyu and Thurman. You can see what they're trying to do. They're making all these fights with name recognition, but not fights that make sense at this time. Not fights that boxing fans are interested in, and definitely not fights fans want to pay for. Canelo Alvarez and Charlo 2, as you could call it, is not going to do better numbers than Canelo Alvarez Charlo 1. Charlo 1 was an undisputed world champion, an active fighter who actually did what he had to do in the ring. His brother is a coked out fucking alcoholic with psychological issues, who's been inactive for 2 years, bounced back against the welterweight, and now he's going to be the fighter that Canelo fights. You tell me that's a fight people want to watch. And I'll tell you, fuck no, it ain't. And I don't hate on Canelo Alvarez, but I can be honest about a shit fight that nobody wants to see. And there's no surprise that it's part of the PBC. PBC pushing for pay-per-view consistently. Amazon wanted it free. Well, if Amazon wanted it for free, it should be free because Amazon fucking are the ones dictating this, right? And they should not be bullied because we saw what that did to Showtime. It got them right out of the fucking boxing sport completely because they let Al Heyman push fights that nobody wanted to see. Fox was smart enough to realize that if you're selling us garbage, we're just not going to buy it. And inevitably, that's what's going to happen to Amazon as well. They're going to be like, no one gives a shit about this crap. We ain't pushing it. And then the PBC and Al Heyman are going to be looking for a new network pretty soon. I don't know how long the deal is guaranteed for, but we will see. And I don't say this because I'm hating on Al Heyman and the PBC. I want boxing to succeed, all boxing. That's why I was excited about the PBC joining DAZN. And then all the PBC fighters and everyone else all on one platform, making it very easy to do what Saudi Arabia wants to do. Make the best fights possible. And I'm not a UFC crony. I understand that you can't have the best fight after the best fight, after the best fight, after the best fight, after the best fight. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for the fighters. And inevitably, it's just not going to last, right? You need to have tune-up fights, showcase fights, big events, right? And generally, that's how boxing works. And I grew up in an era where that was normal. The fights I saw free on TV, 90% of them weren't superstar against superstars. It was a superstar versus a no-name, who knows, old, past his best fighter to showcase the superstar on TV. And so my mentality is that's not unusual. People want to see the superstar and they want to see that guy look great, but you can't sell that for pay-per-view. Iceman says, hate to bring it up, but are you all hard work on other channel videos just gone? Just gone. Yes. When YouTube cancels, everything is bye-bye, zaijian, sayonara. So that channel is gone. All the content is gone. Thank you very much, John Boxing, you pussy motherfucker. Because that's what he is. I could do the same thing to him. I could have done the same thing to him. Because everything he complained about, me copywriting, what did I copyright? His content? Well, then I can say the same thing about him. Fook, Sean, what happened to your other channel? Almost never agree with you, but damn, I'm sorry. Dude, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, some people have no, they like to dish it out, but they can't take it, right? That's the old expression, right? People want to say what they want to say, but they don't want to be held accountable for the things they say. John Boxing said that if Inoue beat Fulton, he would be number one on his pound for pound list. I made a video having John say that. Nothing John hasn't done with me before in the past either. He has me saying my anti-Crawford thing, rant, which wasn't anti-Crawford, was just telling me that beating Ndongo did not make you pound for pound number one. And I stick by that. I stick by what I say. Unfortunately, John doesn't, because he's a fucking snitch. Exactly. Amazon only has itself to blame for dealing with Heyman. True. It is what it is. Just remember, guys, share my content, get it out there, and let's build the channel back up to where it once was. Boom. We can do it. But let's get to this fight this weekend. I'm not sure what the undercard looks like or what else is going on, but I am pretty excited by that Jaime Munguia fight. Obviously, did you guys watch the fight on Tuesday? On Tuesday, Ken Shiro fought Carlos Canzanales, ex-world champion, to defend his unified titles at 108 pounds. If you haven't seen that fight, go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's a war. A war. Great fight. Ken Shiro struggled more than I thought he would against Carlos Canzanales. But for Carlos' benefit, he came in, was aggressive, pushed nonstop, pressured, and showed a ton of heart, as you would expect from a guy who was at one point a world champion and obviously wanted to get back there. For Ken Shiro, a fighter that's on the borderline of being a pound-for-pound top 10 fighter, this was not the kind of performance that's going to catapult you to the top 10 pound-for-pound. But it definitely tells you a lot about his heart, his determination, and his fighting spirit, right? To be in a fight like that and still find a way to scrape out a majority decision. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a great fight. On the undercard was Tenshin Nakakawa, the guy Floyd Mayweather fought a few years ago, who was a superstar Japanese kickboxer who was transitioned into boxing and currently is 3-0. He looked great. He looked great. I think him getting beat up by Floyd Mayweather and crying after the loss definitely improved that young man, because he's only 25 years old, and that fight was obviously when he was like 23 or something. He looked sharp, really skilled. For a guy who's been a kickboxer his whole career to then be able to transition to boxing and be technically as good as he is, damn, he's doing something right. And I definitely expect his name to be something that people are talking about a lot in the future. Japan, produces a lot of very good fighters. I know it's not the fucking flow of the U.S. black man. Sorry, John, but nonetheless, you still got to praise them, regardless if they're producing as many great fighters as America is. Japan is a smaller country, so no one expects them to produce that many elite fighters, right? but the fighters they've produced are pretty good, and we're talking about one of them today. I was watching Twitter and a little conversation that was going on there, and I will read some of the comments later and get into it in a minute, but I just want to quickly go over that Jaime Munguia card. There's also some other cards this weekend as well on Thursday, which I guess is tomorrow my time. Uh, a, a card from Canada. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Eric Bazinian, but Eric Bazinian is another one of these immigrant fighters who's immigrated to Canada. 168-pound fighter, 31-0, 22 knockouts. He's a good little fighter, had some power, and still only 28 years old. Armenian by descent. Obviously, he's a guy that is one to watch at 168 pounds. And when people talk about the 168-pound division and how good it is, it's because of some of the depth of guys like him. He already beat Alanis Fox. He beat Marcelo Coceres. He beat Ronald Ellis in his last fight. He beat Jose Macias prior to that. And obviously his next fight is against Billy Godo, who is 41-7. Not a fighter I'm familiar with, but, you know, being a Canadian, obviously I have to support him. Steve Claggett is also on that undercard. People may remember him. Mary Spencer, if you watch female boxing or Ring IQ, you will be familiar with her as well. And Albert Ramirez, 17-0, 15 KOs, is also going to be on this card. Venezuelan fighter who's going to be fighting. I don't want to try to say his name, but you can look for yourself. Arthur something, 15-1, 12 knockouts. So that fight may be a fantastic fight and definitely one of the fights of the night. Ukrainian fighter, obviously living in Canada, from Uzbekistan, living in Montreal. His only loss coming back in 2000 when he got beat by Gasanov by unanimous decision. Has then bounced back and had 3 victories since then. So we will see how he does as well. But mostly we're looking forward to that Jaime Munguia fight. I always troll your old ass, but it was never personal, and I hope your followers found you as quick as possible, bro. Well, not that quick. Not that quick. It's often funny, right, when you have like 7,000 subs, but then you wonder how many people will resub to your new channel, right? That's the thing. Fair weather subs, fair weather fans, fair weather viewers, or people just can't find the content. I have no idea how YouTube algorithms work, so how easy stuff is to find or not. But we can all share it and give people a bigger opportunity of seeing it. Remember to hit the like. That also benefits me as well. So where is this Jaime Munguia guy? Jaime Munguia. I'm excited by this fight. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you guys think about Munguia, John Ryder? I mean, currently, according to BoxRec, it's a good matchup, right? You got obviously Canelo, Benavidez, Munguia, and Ryder, Christian Mambilla. Under there, you have them. The question I have is, why is David Morrell at number 9 under Andrade and Plant and Derevchenko, 3 fighters who've lost in their last fights, right? Morrell is, as far as I'm concerned, if not the best fighter at 168, definitely top 3. And if you're going to throw him in the ring with either John Ryder or Jaime Munguia, I would raise my hand to fucking Morrell every single time. The speed and power that he brings to the ring is nothing like those guys have ever seen, truthfully, right? Who's Jaime Munguia or John Ryder, for that fact, ever fought that had the speed and power of David Morrell? I mean, I won't say David Morrell is the new version of Roy Jones, but there's some Roy Jones in him, right? There's some Roy Jones in him. Harder Cole says, I just found out that I hear some music in the background. Yes, there's some late night driving music that is in the background. I'm going to start trying to have specific shows for specific purposes. Uh, and once I figure it out, highlight it, every week there'll be a specific show on a specific day with a specific idea. One of my ideas, of course, was going to be late night drive through, which is what we have tonight. Another one is going to be, uh, you know, goat or not goat, but what do you call somebody who's just really a fucking, donkey of the week? So the channel that I deem the donkey of the week and the narrative that they're pushing that I'm going to comment on. So if you guys have any other ideas or things that you would like me to do, let me know in the comment section below. But let's check out this Munguia fight. Jaime Munguia. I know some reason people don't like him. And the reality is nobody's calling Jaime Munguia a pound-for-pound fighter. No one's calling him one of the best fighters in the sport. No one's giving him any kind of accolades at all. The only thing people say about him is that he's exciting to watch. He's a fun fighter to watch. And his volume against Canelo Alvarez would be super exciting because he could beat Canelo based on volume. But Canelo could easily counter him and knock his ass out in the process. But, people that are so anti him, it's all a race thing. 42-0, 33 knockouts. The guy just brings it. And he's still super young, right? Only 27 years of age. 2 or 3 years younger than fucking Tank Davis. And when you look at his resume, it's not great, but it's not terrible. Derevchenko, Demetrius Ballard, Gabriel Rosado, Kurian Johnson, Gary Spike O'Sullivan, Dennis Hogan, Yeshi Inoue, Brandon Cook, Liam Smith, who's since then knocked out fucking Chris Eubank, Saddam Ali. It's not the worst resume, but obviously it's not a highlight resume. Nothing that you're going to get super excited about. You would say John Ryder probably has the better set of fights. But let's check out this undercard. So this card obviously is coming from the States. Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy promoted, DAZN fight. They're doing very well. What did it say? Mara says, I think Munguia will look sharp under Freddie Roach. Nelo is levels above Munguia. Yeah, levels. But he's also not motivated anymore. He's also giving up reach, height, physicality, youth, right? These things can all catch up to you. And that's the thing, right? You never know when a fighter is going to slide. But let's look at this undercard. So you got Jaime Munguia, John Ryder, which easily could be fight of the year. I don't see this fight turning out any other way but as super exciting. Oscar Collazo is on the undercard. 8-0, 6 KOs. American, obviously Puerto Rican by heritage. He's going to be fighting Reyes Gutierrez. Funduro's daughter is going to be on the card as well against Christine Cruz. She's a long, lanky girl. And outside of that, I don't know, and I'm not familiar with many of these other fighters. Let me know if you guys know who they are. Alan Picasso Romero, Gregory Morales, Darius Fulghum is fighting Alanis Fox. That could be a good fight. Gail Cabrera, Daniel Garcia, and Jonathan Canales. This is a real Golden Boy card, stacked full of Latino fighters, right? I remember the size difference in Saddam Ali fight. And it's funny that before the Saddam Ali fight, and people may forget this, but when Canelo Alvarez failed his drug test and wasn't able to fight Golovkin in his second fight, Golden Boy, of course, wanted to fill that spot with a Golden Boy fighter, kind of like Matchroom did when instead of fighting Chris Eubank, Golovkin fought Kell Brook as a replacement opponent. Golden Boy tried to do the same thing and tried to push Jaime Munguia into that position. But the sanctioning body vetoed that and said that he was untested, too young, and didn't give him authorization to be a replacement opponent. And then what did he do? He went on to then beat Saddam Ali to become a world champion pretty soon afterwards. So the rest is history, so to speak, right? This unknown guy that was going to be a Golovkin opponent. Imagine the notoriety he would have got if he would have fought Golovkin, right? And that was an older, slower Golovkin. I mean, I think Golovkin obviously would have beat him and probably knocked him out somewhere between 6 and 8 rounds, but it would have been a great fight, right? A great fight and a big statement for him. But let's look at some of these comments I saw earlier today. I thought I took pictures of it. What happened? There we go. So Steve Kim was commenting on a comment on Twitter, and the guy on Twitter said, majority of Japanese fighters couldn't sell out a phone booth either. Difference is Inoue isn't getting paid like Canelo, Tank Davis, and others. Where is he? Here. Here's his comment in full. Difference is Inoue isn't getting paid like Canelo and Tank and Floyd and Manny prior. What do they all have in common? They don't fight in Japan. They fight in the USA. They might be on to something. But if that's the narrative, then all these guys should be fighting in Saudi Arabia. Because I don't think Tank Davis is making more money than Inoue is. And they're the same age. Like if I just go here and just do simple checks, let's see. Inoue Inoue's net worth. And I know they never fucking spell the name wrong. Who is Naomi Annie? So right now, they list his net worth as of December 2023. Come on, where is it? The monster has an estimated net worth of $7 million thanks to his unbeaten fighting record. 7 million, right? And chances are it's probably more than that because we know that he did get quite a few big money fights, since then. But nonetheless, $7 million right now currently is what they list Inoue at. So let's look at Tank Davis. Gervonta Tank Davis's net worth. So where are you, Tank? This is of 2023, according to whoever this is putting it. So here it is. Net worth hovers in the vicinity of $4 to $5 million. According to CelebrityNetWorth.com, it's $4 million, whereas SportsLines.com puts it around $5 million. So this is non-biased media sources, which both are probably wrong, but it gives you some indication that right now, Inoue, who's 30 years old, has a higher net worth than Gervonta Tank Davis, who's also 30 years old, by at least $2 million, right? And even if these numbers are off, it still gives you an indication that these fighters' net worth is not that far different, whether it's Tank Davis, $1 million here, or Inoue, $1 million here. Obviously, right now, they have Inoue $2 million up on Tank Davis. So trying to act like Tank Davis is somehow some superstar, making millions and millions of dollars, and Inoue in Japan is somehow being fucking screwed over, and his real worth is only going to be recognized when he comes to America. But yet we know how American boxing fans treat him. So why would he make more money coming to the US to a market that doesn't give a fuck about him, right? Doesn't want to watch him, doesn't praise him, doesn't give him recognition, dismisses and downplays his weight divisions, and accuses him of fucking every illegal tactic imaginable? Why would he come to the States if that's what he had to look forward to, right? Just think about that. Like, what would his motivation be? If it was me, I'd be like, fuck you. I'd stay in Japan. If you want to fight me, come over here and get a career high fucking payday, like Stephen Fulton did. Stephen Fulton does not regret going to Japan to fight Inoue because he's never going to get paid that much money again in the US. Never. And when Inoue goes to fucking Saudi Arabia, and the number that they said, and this is True School Sports that reported it, so who knows what the validity and truth is behind it, but he said upwards to $69 million. $69 million. What fight is fucking Tank Davis going to get that's going to pay him fucking close to $70 million? If the reports are true that he got paid $30 million to fight Ryan Garcia, even though it doesn't show up on his net worth, when's he going to make another fight similar to that? Because he never made any money like that before Ryan Garcia, and chances are he's not going to make any money like that after Ryan Garcia, unless he has an opponent similar to Ryan Garcia. Ryder Carl says Haney as a WBC Fighter of the Year sounds more like solitary gift than anything. WBC Fighter of the Year. The reality of these things is you always have all these differences, right? That's the problem with boxing that waters it down. Wayne Evans in the house. The problem with boxing is this kind of shit. There's a million fighters of the year. From fucking Ring Magazine, from ESPN, from this, from that, from that, from this. ESPN has their top guys. PBC has their top guys. I mean, the convoluted way people go to try to build up stars with fake titles and fake belts, all it does is water down the product so that casual fans don't know what the fuck they're watching. In truth, as far as they know, everybody they watch is a fucking world champion. Right. And truthfully, that's the biggest problem boxing has, because there's no legitimacy to it. None whatsoever. PBC will pursue Tank versus Pacquiao. Well, that would probably be their smartest fucking bet. But who the fuck wants to see Tank Davis fight a retired Manny Pacquiao who's 40-something years old? As if that's significant. As if that's a fight anybody fucking wants to watch. Right? Come on. Let's be honest. That's not a fight anybody's been looking forward to. It's not a fight anybody's been asking for. But these are the kind of people you get. Right? This kind of American anti-Japan type of stupidity. Boxing is dumb. No, dude. You're dumb, Geraldo, however you say your name. Dudes like you are the problem. Stupid. Stupid motherfuckers. Pushing narratives. But let's listen to what Steve Kim had to say. Steve Kim, who obviously is a huge racist, and because he's Asian, he's obviously really biased, but he's American. He says, Inoue is actually amongst the highest non-heavyweight earners in the sport. Well over $5 million per fight. By the way, I don't see a lot of title fights in Japan fought in ballrooms. And that's true, right? His last few fights have been in front of 20,000 capacity stadiums. I think it was less than that. Maybe it's 15, 16, 17, but somewhere around there. Hence the reason why they're going to this 55,000 stadium in Tokyo, because trying to get tickets is impossible. I've tried to get tickets because Japan is fucking not that far away. And there's nothing I would like more than to go to Japan to watch fucking the Inoue beat the shit out of somebody. I'd be gung-ho and ready for it. And maybe May, I can do it, especially if it's going to be in the Tokyo Dome. 55,000 tickets available. Hopefully, I can find how to buy these tickets. But the truth is, they were doing like a lottery sort of situation where you put your name into the hat, they pull your name out. If you're so fortunate, then you get an opportunity to buy tickets. But if you're not Japanese, I don't even know how you put your name in. I don't even know how you find this kind of thing, because I looked all over the internet and couldn't find anything. Tank should be ashamed of fighting old man instead of Haney, Loma, Shakur, and Teo. Fact. I really like Steve Kim's unbiased work. Me too. The funniest thing is, speaking about Tank Davis, and I don't say this to hate on him, I like Tank, one of the most exciting fighters in boxing, which is why I want to see him fight one of the other top guys in the sport. His team once again came out and ruined his reputation. They did that with the whole Lomachenko situation when they blatantly ducked Lomachenko at 130 for unification, talking about Lomo needs to do it now because he's getting old. We're young, we can take our time, meaning we're going to age his ass out. And still they haven't fought him. Like, if that's the case, you should be chasing him now, giving Loma an offer that he can't refuse on pay-per-view, right? But they're not. And his team just came out and said they're not going to fight Shakur Stevenson. Ever. Ever. Explain that to me. How would you consider yourself a real boxer or boxing fan if this is what you're talking about? And this is the same as his team that came out, Floyd Mayweather, before, and said that Haney and Shakur should just fight each other because Tank isn't going to fight either one of them. Yet you have guys like Knockout Boxing who caps for fucking Tank Davis every day of the week, acting like it's everybody else's fault and it has nothing to do with Tank Davis. Yet we've seen years and years and years of this shit from Tank Davis. Docking Tevin Farmer for $7 to $8 million from DAZN. Tevin Farmer. Ducking other fights that should have been made. Right? Like, the reality is, it's not hate when you want to see a guy in big fights. That's what everybody should want. That's what everyone should be pushing for. I'm not saying I don't want to see Canelo versus David Benavidez, because I do. I would like to see it in May. But if I have to wait till September, that's okay too. But if I need to wait till 2025, that's a fucking problem. Especially if we're getting shit fights like Charlo 2. Right? But, some dudes, Loma will fight unification before Tank. Of course he will. Of course he will. Tank Davis is 30 years old, has never been in a unification fight, and probably never will be. Let's look at some of these other comments left here by people on this X chat. So obviously a Japanese fan comes out and says, in Japan, Inoue Inoue's bouts and special TV programs are available for free viewing, reaching tens of millions of viewers through the majority communication platforms NTT and public broadcaster NHK. As a result, he generates sponsorships, incomes that far surpass his fight purses. Right? This is a Japanese guy telling you, because obviously they would know. They see the posters, the advertisements, things you don't see American fighters get, right? You don't see American fighters pushing products, pushing brands. Not like we used to. We used to see it, but we don't see it anymore. Guys like John and others say, oh, black boxers always hated. Yet back in the day, you saw Marvin Hagler constantly on TV pushing speed stick. You saw Leonard constantly on TV pushing different products, whether it was Pepsi or 7-Up or Sprite or whatever. I can't remember. Him and his son both in the gym. Like, it was not unusual to see black athletes and non-black athletes pushing products on TV. Nowadays, what boxer do you see push anything? I know AJ in the UK gets lots of advertisement opportunities. But what American fighter is getting advertisement opportunities? Lomachenko had a bit, right? Golovkin was working with Nike a little bit, but you never saw commercials. You never saw a big push for these people to sponsor and promote these fighters, right? But Manny Pacquiao in Asia, not just Philippines, but in Asia, was everywhere. Inoue is going to be like the face of boxing throughout Asia, right? And so when they're doing this, and this is what happens in Asia a lot, he's on free TV. with tens of millions of people watching his broadcasts, meaning that these people see the advertisements, meaning that advertisement works. Like the NFL, when you watch it free on TV, the NFL is not losing money by putting the NFL free on TV because so many people are viewing it. Advertisement prices are so expensive, they're raking in tons of cash through advertisement, right? Which is essentially what TV did historically to generate money to put on programming. Where are we? Harder Coil, Roy Dixon, what's up? Thank you very much. Harder Coil says Mayweather, Tank, Flomos are such dick riders that they never think critically of Mayweather, so they allow Mayweather talk all that shit and over controversial things. Salute in the building. Wayne Evans says still see Leonard as Skechers commercials. Is he doing Skechers commercials now? Look at that. Leonard's fucking how old? 60 something. And he's still a face of products. And he went through drug, alcohol addictions, problems like assaulting his wife. Like he went through some issues that don't really make you a product placement type of individual. But because he was such a superstar with a glowing personality and the Magic Johnson kind of smile and charisma, that he's always been successful. They will never be critical of Tank cherry picking and ducking. Never. Never. And that's clear, right? You just look from these comments that people left. What's this one? The one says, there's a reason why Fulton came to Japan and not the other way around. Exactly. Very high payday. Cameron Muncie says, sure, the USA is a great market if you can capitalize on it. But boxing is global. The UK, Japan, Australia for local fighters can make some nice paydays. There are prize fighters. They go where the money is, and it isn't always in the US for everybody. See, smart people. For every stupid motherfucker you get putting their 2 cents in degrading and hating on the sport of boxing, you got a lot of smart individuals out there as well. What he says is 100% true. Obviously, Cameron's a very intelligent young man. And that's the reality. We also know based on divisions you fight in, you won't necessarily be successful in the US because there's not a market for smaller fighters in the US. That's not what American boxing fans want to watch. And if that's the case, why would you go to the US? Because you're never going to be as successful as you could be somewhere else. Because unfortunately, they're not interested in your programming, right? So, what else are we talking about? Eric says, in America, it's all about name recognition to attract casual fans. There are no names in the weight classes that Inoue fights at. You think Fulton wanted to travel to Japan? If you could sell out an American, he would have. The money is in Japan, so that's where they fight. Facts. That's a simple reason to it. You think about some of these fighters like Linares, Bam Rodriguez, Roman Gonzalez. These are not Asian fighters. Yet they were promoted by Tekken Promotions, a Japanese promoting company, and based in Japan. They lived and trained in Japan because being smaller weight class fighters, they knew for them to get out of Latin America and go where potentially they could make a living, make money, and be successful, they need to go to Asia and not the Philippines, which is a third world country. They needed to go to Japan, a first world country with a lot of money behind it. And that's why they went there, right? And that from there, obviously, they then came to the States afterwards, after they were established world champions and had name recognition. Where's this? Ram TX says, Inoue is doing great for being relatively unknown. Made $5 million for fighting another relatively unknown fighter in Stephen Fulton. In that weight class, it doesn't get much better. Exactly. It doesn't get much better. Let's just go on a back and forth. I saw Ring IQ going in with somebody on Twitter as well. And I don't know if this was regarding a short video I put out But I put out a video talking about how Estrada is one of the most um, ignored pound for pound fighters in boxing. And people talked about his inactivity being the reason why people aren't putting him on the pound for pound list. And I agree. I say that's probably a truism as well. But even when he was active and beating legendary fighters like Romy Gonzalez, he still wasn't getting a lot of praise from a lot of American-based boxing channels. And somebody was responding to Ring IQ, who was more in favor of Ken Shiro, and this guy was obviously more in favor of Estrada, and there was a bit of back and forth between the two of them. Even though I said in the video, why would we have to even pit these two guys against each other? They're both on the cusp of being pound for pound. We don't need to hate on one to build the other. Let's give both of them praise. They're both great fighters, and they're both two of those fighters who could easily be on a pound for pound list. But the problem is, Ken Shiro didn't look great in his fight on Tuesday. Had some holes, got hit too much, won a close competitive fight. Estrada's been very inactive, coming off of a career best win. And one of the things they were going back and forth in is the fact that Estrada's been inactive. And he had an opportunity to unify titles at 115 pounds against another legendary Japanese fighter, Ioka, which is a fight I would have loved to see. And people were talking about this being the fight that happened in December, because we know that New Year's, they always have big fight cards in Japan, and it was supposed to be Ioka versus Estrada. First, you got to think about it. For Estrada to go to Japan to get paid $400,000 fighting in somebody else's backyard, when you're the man who just beat Romy Gonzalez convincingly, obviously he would expect more, right? And this tells you what he said. Getting paid $5 million, it doesn't get much better than that. Because Romy Gonzalez and Estrada, I think in their best paydays when they fought each other, was probably just a shade over $1 million. And Estrada and Romy Gonzalez pushed hard to get that $1 million. It did not come easy. They had to fight tooth and nail and really push promoters to finally get those kind of paydays. So him getting paid $400,000 is probably more than reasonable for a fighter of this magnitude. But he felt that going to Japan, he should get paid more. And I don't disagree with him, but this tells you a lot of what this guy just said here. The opportunities just aren't there for smaller fighters. And when you're like a Inoue and you've crossed over and broke through that glass ceiling, you're going to keep things going your way. You're not going to go to a market where now you're going to take a pay cut just so that a few haters on YouTube can say, oh, good, he's coming to America. We can test him now. We'll truly see if he's tested now. That's the same thing they said when he fought Fulton. He never fought a black fighter. This will be his real test. And when he passed that test in flying colors, then they move the goalposts once more and find new reasons to hate on him and discredit him, right? Oh my God. Team Batman Boxing says 2023 called and they wanted the methodology back. This guy, I don't know how you pronounce his name. He said Fulton earned a career high payday. Hint, it was not in America. And that's true. Me being a Inoue fan, I mean, as I said, I don't live in America. So it's not as if I would go to see a Inoue fight in the US. Some of you Americans maybe want the opportunity to see a Inoue fight in the States. Okay, granted. That's fair. For you to come all the way to Japan to watch him is probably more of an issue. Whereas for me, obviously, it's not an issue, except trying to get tickets. But the majority of boxing fans aren't going to go watch fights live. The majority of boxing fans don't go to events. It's too expensive. Hotels, traveling, the tickets for live events. You know, most people don't have that kind of expendable cash that they're going to use to watch fights live, even though obviously the atmosphere, the experience would be great, would be probably a once in a lifetime type of experience for many people. But reasonably, it's not something most boxing fans plan or do. Most of us watch it on TV in 4K in the comfort of our house, drinking a beer on the sofa, right? And it's not a bad way to do it. So the biggest thing we want is access to these fights. That's it. Access. As long as we're getting access to fights, regardless of what platform they're on and who's pushing it, as long as we get access, that's all we can ask for. And as a fan, that's all I want. Literally, that's all I want. Access. But let me know in the comment section what you guys think. They will never be critical of Tank yet. I read that one. It's true. But let's be fair. There's becoming an Errol Spence, Bud Crawford division in American YouTube right now between Devin Haney and Tank Davis, which is very similar to what we've seen over the last 5 years. And, you know, this is a lot of those YouTubers that I'm criticizing and pointing fingers at who are just haters and not real boxing fans. And this is what they do. They eat their own. And they did that with Crawford. And now they've turned on Tank Davis and they're really attacking him all to do what? Fanboy and dick ride Devin Haney. If I had a choice as a boxing fan on which side of the fence I want to ride, I'd pick fucking Tank Davis, just like I picked Bud Crawford. And this isn't going against the majority of boxing fans who support Haney or support Errol Spence more. No, because you're a moron. Who fucking thinks that way? I pick fighters based on entertainment factor. That's why I liked Pacquiao over Floyd. Not because he was Asian, because why do I fucking care? Pacquiao was a far more exciting fighter than Mayweather. Bud Crawford is a far more exciting fighter than Errol Spence. Spence is exciting, but very one-dimensional. Tank Davis is a far more exciting fighter than fucking Devin Haney. And nobody can say that that's not 100% factual. So, of course, I'm going to be more geared towards the more exciting fighter. That's why I like AJ more than like Fury. Right? I've always been a fan of skilled fighters who have power, the ability to look dynamic, sensational, yet be able to finish a fight like this. Right? That's what boxing fans want to see, excitement. You also want fighters with heart, determination, guts, right? Inevitably, we want drama. Sports for you and me is all about drama. Some people watch Korean dramas. Some people watch, soap opera dramas in America, Dallas, and whatever. But for you and me, drama comes through sports. The big catch, the last minute jump shot, the knockout punch. I'm a Pacquiao fan, but Pacquiao getting fucking slept by Juan Manuel Marquez, who literally looked like he was going to get knocked out in that fight, and Pacquiao was going to really lay claim to being the best of the two. And then boom, that right hand fucking lights out. Pacquiao was stretched. And I'm a huge Pacquiao fan, but that's iconic. That moment. You can't get more dramatic than that. That is TV at its best because it's unscripted. Nobody could have expected that. Going into that round, it looked like Pacquiao was finally putting his foot to the gas and Marquez fucking night was short-lived, right? And if Pacquiao would have stepped back and just walked away with the last 10 seconds of that round, he would have probably came out in the next round and fucking finished Marquez. But he didn't because he's a killer. He went for it, got slept. And that moment fucking resounds through boxing history, right? Unlike Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, a fight that people would love to forget. 8 years in building it up, 8 years in waiting, and it's one of the worst fucking fights in boxing history, right? It almost killed boxing, because casual fans, after all the back and forth, all the hoopla, all the bullshit, they just weren't interested in boxing anymore, because this is what all the hype was about. This fight, Floyd Mayweather, who never once looked like he wanted to fucking try to make a fight. And this was coming from friends of mine who aren't boxing fans, are just casual sports fans who watched the fight and they were cheering for Pacquiao because they couldn't cheer for fucking Floyd, because Floyd he's that chemical that just makes things unexciting. He does what he does to stop a fight from being a fight, right? He's the fucking asbestos blanket you throw over the fire. Nobody wants to see that fucking asbestos fucking blanket thrown over the fire. They want to see that fire roaring, consuming, being devastating. But that's the way Floyd fought. How could I ever support a fighter like that? I couldn't. It's just not the kind of style that I was raised to be excited to watch. I hate defensive football. I hate defensive hockey. I hate defensive basketball. Show me fucking a guy who's willing to make a play, a guy that's willing to take the shot, a guy who's going to go across the middle to make the catch. That's what I want to watch, because sports is all about drama. And you can call me dramatic, a drama queen, a drama king, and that's okay. That's why I don't mind going back and forth with douchebag fucking rat finks like John Boxing, because I don't mind the drama. But thanks everyone for jumping in tonight. We will try to make this a regular Thursday nights, a late night drive-through. Come be a part, and I will see you next week. Obviously, Sunday we're going to be doing a live talking about post-fight boxing, talking about the Jaime Munguia fight. See if it lived up to expectation. Did it deliver? Did he win? Did he put himself in position for a Canelo Alvarez super fight? Or did John Ryder surprise everybody? Stay tuned to then. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks for jumping out. Have a good weekend. Peace out, everyone. Bless.